Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the town board meeting for May 28, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. As always, we are here in person. We're also running a Zoom that's being streamed to both Facebook and to YouTube. If you're interested in joining the meeting via Zoom to participate remotely, the instructions are at the top of each of our agendas to how to do that. Next up, I would like to ask Councilor Nicholson to lead the pledge.
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the sign-in sheet for open podium was blank. Is anyone here for open podium by a show of hands? Okay. Oh, anyone online who'd like to make a comment for open podium? Let's use the raise hand function, please. Okay, we'll jump right into the first item. So first up, we have a public hearing for the amendment to the PUD for hybrid senior apartments. Basically what happened with this project is we approved the PUD, I think back in 2020, the end of 2023. And they've since been to the planning board for site plan approval. After some back and forth conversations with the planning board and the planner and the planning board engineer, this proposed change came back as kind of like a recommendation from the planning board of, after we talked with the applicants, this is what we would be looking for in order to approve the project as proposed. And so we're here to hear questions or concerns about the amendment that we've had on the agenda. Anybody have anything else they want to add? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We've got the changes kind of highlighted there so that you know exactly what the changes are. And I think we do have a small amendment to it, just some language in the resolution in system funds instead of hybrid senior apartments.
And garden parks.
Oh, yeah, garden parks. Yeah, so we've got a couple little things to clean up. And that being said, we are still waiting on the response from county planning. So we can't even consider this for a vote tonight. So we're here to have a conversation and if need be, hold the public hearing open as we continue to hear some of that feedback. Any comments from the board?
No, just clarifying the workforce housing component of the plan. So I just want to articulate it out loud. So, you know, it's workforce housing only if and only if family members of the Brookdale residents are not occupying those 4 units.
That's not how I.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes, we believe. We believe that Brookdale will occupy those units in a full-time basis. It is in a month-to-month agreement with them, just giving them the flexibility and not knowing the extent of their duration, you know, engaging their facility, but it will be dedicated.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just, you know, clarity, I think it's a good and generous use of those units, but to the question of affordable, available housing, it's not really that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, you know, they're gonna be affordable for the Brookdale
Yes.
people occupying it too, though, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it will be affordable units. They're just dedicated to them, knowing that we have a shortage of that temporary type housing or, you know, those that are traveling to utilize the facility don't have close proximity to their loved ones.
It's a good thing.
Mhm.
Okay, I entertain a motion to waive the reading.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading out of notice.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
I make a motion to public hearing. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we'll start with anybody in the front row who'd like to make a comment on the hybrid senior apartments. Okay, starting.
Okay, so I sit down. When we had this meeting 2 years ago, there was a few things you were gonna get back to us on. I haven't seen anything in writing, or I can't even remember half the things that was said. One of my big concerns was traffic.
Mhm.
And now they want to go to a 4-story 80 unit with 158 parking. So one of your counselors, I don't see her here tonight,
That was me.
that was you.
Mhm.
I think she was kind of surprised too. We counted cars, I got it in my pocket, from 4:55 to 5:15. And it was 135 cars that went past my house. And 20 cars that pulled into a high-ridge apartment. That's 20 minutes. So you're sitting there shaking your head, what do you think about that?
I think it's one, again, this is a recommendation from the planning board, so we're open to feedback, and if you think that's too few parking spots, too many parking spots, too many units, thank you for the comment. But where we're at right now is we have traffic issues kind of all around town. We've had a conversation about 290 and North Burdick Street, and changing the way that the roads handle that traffic and try to slow people down or rework them to some other part of town, that takes a long time. And that being said, we are expecting, these are senior units, so a little less activity than most. But, they've taken a look at this. If, this is what we feel is a good use of the property, and as traffic, if it gets worse, that'll be part of the conversation we have about that whole corridor. Some of the things we're talking about is they are putting a sidewalk in, and then we're hoping to get that last mile up to the village of Fayetteville, so that it's a little bit just inherently safer for people that are walking there and people that live there. But we've also had conversations about potentially speeding cameras, adding a crosswalk, a number of other things that will hopefully deter people from using it as a cut through and really focus on just making it so that the people who live there are using that road, and there's other better ways that don't have the same issues of kind of crowding on the street that people can use.
You say senior, what's a senior?
55 and older.
55. That's a joke too, in my opinion, but anyway. I'll leave it at
They
that.
didn't make it up, it's the standard.
Denny's
That's
uses,
standard.
Denny's uses it too for their menu.
What's that?
Denny's uses it too for their menu.
Anything you'd like to add, sir?
What's that?
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No,
Thank
I
you.
see where it's going, that's fine.
Anyone in the,
There was a traffic study that, was provided to the town, and knowing that the town was, this project wouldn't impact the current, traffic issues that are along that road today.
Sir, can I just get your name for the records?
What's that?
Your name for the records, sir.
James Wilson.
Thank you very much.
okay, anyone in the second row? Okay, it looks like we do have a hand raised on Zoom, so why don't we go ahead and promote that person?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's my first time doing a Zoom meeting. So my name's Denise Lynch. My husband and I, Patrick Lynch, live on 7346 Dartmoor Crossing on Dartmoor. We live adjacent right to the property where you're planning on putting these apartments. One of our concerns, and we voiced this and attended other meetings, and I couldn't attend a meeting tonight, so I'm doing it through Zoom and not in person, is that the concern is the parking. I know you guys say that the traffic pattern, you guys analyze that, and it's been a concern, just like that other gentleman stated, and cut through and through our development. If they can't, it gets backed up. They always cut through Dartmoor Crossing and go up the back way to Route 92. You say there's other traffic patterns. The only other traffic pattern to cross town is really in front of Wellwood Middle School going that way. So we do get a lot of cut through traffic to get into the village of Manlius, whether it's 92 or 173. But the concern is also cutting back the number of parking spots for people with 2-bedroom apartments to 1.5 parking spots. You guys are just assuming with 55 and older in a community that there's not going to be a problem. But people come and visit. When you get a 2-bedroom apartment, I have friends, I'm 59 years old, that live in apartments, and they have children that come home to visit and spend vacations, or they come back from college. At 55, you could still have a child that comes back from college and is living with you for the summer. So the thing is that the parking, I don't understand what happens with the overflow. Is it going to be on Dartmoor? Is it going to be on Highbridge Street? And then it's going to be a vision issue trying to pull out right now out of Dartmoor Crossing. You have a very hard time seeing cars coming from the right around the corner, heading into the village of Fayetteville as we're making a left-hand turn, coming down around that bend. It's not safe. And I don't think that to me, to have to increase the number of apartments, it just doesn't make sense to us that you want to do that. I think you already have your mindset that you're going to have this building going in. I think a common courtesy is also to try to take into effect what our feelings are in the development surrounding this facility and what our concerns are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've been living in this neighborhood since 1993, and I was part of the building of Altira and making sure it fit in within the community and accepting that was going to be going over there because it was owned commercial. We were told when we built our house that they were going to be it was going to be just like a business park, Monday through Friday traffic, nothing on the weekends. And now you're building these apartment buildings, 3 stories. 3 story. Is this going to be 3 stories still, or now are you going 4?
These 4.
One's 5.
Because one is parking.
Is that there's 4, sir, we're just taking turns for the public hearing, it's so, for the developers, it's 4 stories, is that including the garage parking? Or, okay, so yeah, it's 4 stories.
It's 4 and then under.
Yeah, and to me, right, and that doesn't even fit in with the zone, the area of the look of our community. The apartments, why Wildwood Ridge works is because they're only a lower basement and then 2 stories high. You're building something that's a lot taller and obtrusive to a development area. You're increasing my assessment, expecting my home to sell for over $500,000. But then you're putting something in there that to me is it's a deterrent for anybody to purchase my home. I keep my property up nice to make it look good, to fit within the community. And to me, it's very disturbing that this piece of property is being utilized this way. I would rather have seen it used as a daycare, like originally what was said back originally in 1996 or whenever they proposed that was going to be a daycare. That would have fit more within our community and offered more for people on the weekends to use the daycare facility if they wanted the grounds for picnics and parties and things like that. It could have fit in more. Putting this apartment complex and what you're doing to our community is very upsetting to me. I've lived here since 1986. I left living in Spyglass Lane and moved into Garden Park when it was developed. And I knew that that was going to be adjacent to my apartment, to my house, not an apartment complex that was going to be this tall. And I don't understand what you think that people are going to want to come in and buy into Garden Park, or I feel bad for the people that live across the street from that people are going to be coming in and out all hours of the night. How are you going to control the echoing and the sound barrier that's going to be if people have their apartment doors open and playing music? It's going to echo right now when people are in Altira and at 10:30 at night. If my windows are open or even if they're closed, I can hear the music that they're blasting coming out of Altira. That echoes in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's anyone else from Zoom, please use the raise hand function, and then anybody in the 3rd row, just show hands, come on. Could you come to the podium, if you mind?
Some questions, one regarding the raised number of residences. Originally 75, then 86, now 102. What is the reason for this? What? It's the same size building.
So just with comprehensive plan that calls for dense infill, that was done through a pretty extensive process. I have a conversation with folks. It also calls for diversity of housing and senior housing that fits the bill. So the planning board, who worked with the developer on this, is trying to maximize, it sounds like, the best use of the site. And the comprehensive plan tells us that we should be building things like this. And the county plan is in lockstep with that. This is the exact type of development that every expert calls for in our communities like ours, so that we can fit more people in a smaller space, which is cheaper to provide services to. We have more people in the town, but this is very much in line with the trend within Manlius, within Honolulu County, within New York State, within the nation, of how we are trying to move developments slightly differently than we used to in the past to address the housing shortage.
And is this making it more affordable for the people that are gonna be living there? Or are they going to be also paying through the nose for, any, you know?
That depends on the private business that is running these apartments. We have a PUD with them that has asked for specific carve-outs for affordability. They've reached a great agreement with Brookdale to make sure that a need that we have in our community is met. So while it wasn't all affordable, at this point, pretty much 10% is the best we can ask for, because that's what the county asked for in their pilot agreements. And so our goal, the planning board's goal, was to do what the comprehensive plan says and build dense units and also reduce parking, because we have a lot of extra parking in the town.
John, if I could jump in real quick. This is the town of Manlius review, so this town is reviewing this. Within this, we are a township within a county, and there's two forms of government that require review of this project. And John mentioned it, the county has a mandate now, they're going to all the communities and they're asking us to develop our centers, to get more people into our villages, more people into our cities. We've received preliminary comments from the county, and one of the items on the county is, most of them are, make sure you have stormwater, make sure you're not cutting down trees in the wrong area, make sure you have your wetland permit, make sure you have sanitary flow, make sure you have all these things. I call those things challenges, obstacles. But one thing that was very supportive of what John and the town of Manlius is trying to do here, they call this infill development. The county, our tax dollars are stretched so thin. There is water and sanitary right at that road. All the services are right here. We're kind of looking at things backwards. I know you live here and it's different, it's gonna be a change, but the benefit is people in our villages and cities, what, you know, I'm gonna go off on a tangent.
So I think, thank you. Would you like to continue?
No, that was one question, it's just like, every time this thing comes back, you know, it cycles through, it went from, you know, 3 stories to 3.5 stories to condos on the top with, you know, views of a lovely High Bridge Road. Now it's 102, what's it gonna be next is sort of the thing. It just seems like this thing is mushrooming as it continues to just idle. The other question I have is, yes, 2023 was when the PUD was proposed and you guys gave it the go ahead. But it was even earlier than that in 2023, the comprehensive plan was also put in place. And now it's 2025, 2 years later, and you're still giving us these sort of nebulous answers to how the town, village, whichever it might be, county even, is going to provide for the community you're plunking this thing down into with slower traffic, more, and this silly sidewalk idea. I mean, yes, any sidewalk is good, but putting it on their property and then that's it. There's still no sidewalk from where it ends to the sidewalk into the town, into the village rather. There is no sidewalk from their property to the Wildwood Ridge Apartments. There are no bike lanes. There is too fast traffic. I understand it's a county highway, yet there's a state highway 5 on the other side of town that has very generous shoulders, crosswalks every 1/10 of a mile, it seems, and 30-mile-an-hour limit once they get to the village. But I think there needs to be, in this instance, with the density of, what'd you say, high density apartments and such, that there aren't, other than Dartmoor, any other intersections with streets. It's driveways. And you just have no comprehension, these people that live in these smaller houses between this location where you're building this thing and where Woodchuck comes down, they have nothing in the way of driveways. In order to get out of their driveways, they really have to back into traffic. And I don't hear any words about dropping the limit or, you know, doing, as you say, putting cameras or doing something to remind people driving that these are people's homes, these are children's homes that are out and about. And the noise from your traffic at the pace at which you need to get wherever you need to go. I don't hear a lot of what the comprehensive plan tells us we need to be working on these things simultaneously. And I don't hear it even being proposed or other things. And you're probably gonna say, they're just the town board and it goes on to the planning board and it's up to them. But I don't get it. I just don't get it. That this thing has been in place, been working on getting this further along, but I've heard nothing
About doing something
about
about the
doing the
traffic,
other stuff.
the speed limits and
Yeah.
so forth.
Yeah. And that's what I'm here to say. I think this thing is not stoppable, but I think there needs to be far, far more done for the community.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can I just get your name, please?
Margaret Mulvey.
Thank you.
When are they starting construction?
Yeah, as soon as we get our permit.
You have a idea when?
If
It's the process
we
we're
get
working through right now,
If we get our approvals here, then we move on to the planning board for their approvals. It could take a couple of months. We'd love to break ground this year, but it really
We've
depends.
already cut all the trees down.
Sir. Let me get your comments from now. Anyone else in the third row? Okay, anyone in the last row? Well. Oh, great.
Peter Ricardo,
Thank you.
5138 High Ridge. I would be the house right across the driveway. Somebody drops their coffee cup in that apartment, I'll hear the next two words, I guarantee you. It's like an amphitheater. Don't really have any notes prepared. I'm here. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having this open meeting. Just want to underline absolutely the traffic. You know, we're the bad guy, backing out of our own house already, horns, you know, all of that. You're aware of that. We had conversations. I would just like to know if you could direct me to a website or if you have a document. We had discussions about natural barriers, plantings, physical, architectural, lighting, attention to lighting. Those are all major issues. I'm not clear if they've changed, if we're starting over with that, or if some of those things are documented.
So all of that, it would be in the documentation that they have with the planning board, and so the easiest way to find that is there's like the document center
I was just checking to see.
or going to the planning board agendas.
And if you want to direct a message, we could
Yeah.
actually we could just send it.
Yeah, if you just want to
It's kind of
email,
hard to find the document.
town board at or info at, we can get you the links so that you can get.
John, real quick, this is not an approval night. We still have to go through a detailed planning process with the town planning board and their engineer. So their engineer,
We're kind of starting
yeah,
over
so
there.
their engineer's gonna look at our traffic report. We have a lighting plan that we've made adjustments since the last meeting. We moved some lights away, lowered the lights. You remember the meeting we had with you and John informally, and we did add some more buffers, so we did some things and
Okay.
I think.
I lose track of who's.
No, there's a lot going
plans,
on.
or Just a new plan or
Just to get it straight, the planning board asked for an updated set of drawings, and we said we need more time to.
So those, like everyone else, those are my main concerns. We are 30-year residents here. I don't know what protocol is, but I would feel better about a neighbor if we got a mailer or something, even if you just stuff it in the mail. If postage is an issue, like that. But, you know, so that we have a little more connection. If you're close enough to hear somebody drop their coffee cup, it would be nice to have some kind of more direct communication. Not for you guys to be harassed with their, emails every day, but it just would be a nice message, I think, if we were kept in closer touch. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like we've got two folks on Zoom, so if you want to just go ahead and promote those.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I moved here about 3 years from Marcellus, and I live at 7341 Dartmoor Crossing. I'm near Denise, but who spoke earlier, but across from her. So I can see the current senior living complex. I also have two young children, 5 and 3, and they are pretty good about not going into the road. But when I say that like the traffic has escalated in speed and quantity since I've been here, I mean, it's insane. Some days today, I just saw a truck going at least 45 by my rally 50. So, the first thing I want to talk about, or at least just put out there, is the intensity of the traffic as it is now with these 106 units. Again, I know they're seniors. Some of them may have, well, no, 55. You don't have limited mobility typically. So a lot of them are going to be driving. I am very concerned about cut-through traffic. It's so much easier to shoot down Dartmoor and then pop up Highbridge Terrace and pop out on 92. And I just really want, and I'm asking for some concrete steps. I understand, I've read through the comprehensive plan. I know traffic control and kind of de-escalation of the speeding is on the agenda, but just tangible things. Like, can we talk about lowering the speed limit on our streets? 30. I think it should be 20. Speed bumps were once on our street on Highbridge Terrace. They are no longer. When I first moved here, I'll be honest, I had to monitor my speed because it's a straightaway. There aren't that many straightaways around here without a traffic light, without a stop sign. I mean, it's a long shoot both on Highbridge Terrace and Dartmoor Crossing. So that's one concern, is this cut through traffic and the high speed with these additional cars going in and out plus visitors. Denise touched on the parking. Where's open going to go? Can we limit it? I'm 2 houses in from Highbridge there, so cars will be parking on our street, and there's already reduced visibility. All it takes, we all walk, we run. The residents of the apartment complex, a lot of them come over to Dartmoor and walk. We've gotten to know some of them. So Dartmoor is like the place you go and walk. You go with your kids and ride your bikes. With cars parking on both sides of the streets, which right now is legal, that is a concern. The other thing I want to talk about, the high density building, and I understand that. It makes logical sense. I mean, this project is in motion. Again, kind of what are the, you're bringing in all these people, and that's great, and it's part of the plan, but then what are these people going to be connected to? We talk about having like a vibrant, urban, or at least, town center, and being accessible to people to walk or ride their bikes. Right now, that is not a possibility because of the village of Fayetteville, that space right there where there's no sidewalk between the village, where the village starts, and Dartmoor. We went to the Memorial Day parade, and the traffic, I wouldn't even bring my kids in the wagon down there. I ran back, got the car. I mean, it's frightening. The speeds that people are going. And I know none of you have control over how people go 50 when it's 35 there, or 60 when it's 40. But it's really, sidewalks to me seem to be an extreme priority for the utopia that the comprehensive plan is talking about, of this wonderful high density community. But then where can they go? They have to get in their car, and then that's going to increase the traffic congestion. So I just would love to know, what are the plans to get this sidewalk built? What are the plans to get traffic under control? And how can we keep our residents, our kids, our families, our seniors that are going to be moving in? Again, I feel like the train has left, like it's probably going to be built, but how are you going to protect the people that are moving in? And new resident says, I'm going to walk down to Target and get a few things, and like they have to brave 50-mile-an-hour speeders with no sidewalks. So I've documented all this in an email to Carrie, and I appreciate it. She's documented it for me, but I would really like, and I think all the residents in Highbridge Terrace and Dartmoor and the surrounding areas just want some kind of concrete answers. What is
You cut out there for a second.
Oh, just kind of what is going to be done, concrete steps, or what do we have to do to get the sidewalks built? Because I read through the proposal. It says, the developer graciously is going to build the sidewalk, but it's like the sidewalk to nowhere. It's not going anywhere. So great, they're doing their part. But is there anything they can do to facilitate getting these sidewalks continued down so they're actually functional? Because right now, again, it's a sidewalk to nowhere. So just looking for some concrete answers. And I know you can't give all of those answers tonight, but I know that myself and our neighbors do want to hear more.
So I'll just respond with a couple things. So Chief, I think, could we get some data on Dartmoor and High Bridge Terrace and just try to get an understanding of what the current situation is, that way we can track change, but then also if need be, we can put a traffic detail there if needed.
Yeah, of course.
We have those portable speed things, we could put one.
Well, this time of year, they're out. We only have so many pieces of technology and we have a long list. I'm not trying to minimize, I'm just saying that that's the reality of where we are. They are all out right now, but I will make it a priority to put it up high on the list and then we can collect the data.
Yeah.
And then take a look at what it's looking like and look for trends and patterns. Because there's always we use that in order to gauge whether it's a perception problem or an actual problem. So using that technology allows us to keep our most expensive resource personnel in the field doing what they do, collect that data, and then we'll place it where they need to.
Because I know we've looked at High Bridge in the past specifically, and we know that that's an issue.
Yeah.
So step one, we're gonna get data so that we can start tracking how that changes without the development happening, and then when the development happens, we'll be able to actually learn, did it have a massive impact? And if it does have a massive impact, we're gonna have data to then be able to go and talk with the state, talk with the county, and try to find ways to remediate that speeding over there. I will say, it's not, it's a shame that Rob's not here, because I think he could talk a little bit better about that. As far as like speed bumps, speeding signs, we've started to build a repertoire of some things that we try to use to address speeding in these residential neighborhoods. So those are all things that we have, and once we have the data, we can start deploying those and seeing if they have the impact we were hoping for. And then also to the sidewalk question, really what it comes down to is we are currently working on building the Enders Road sidewalk, which is a pretty massive project that had to be a little creative to figure out how we could actually pay for those sidewalks. And it was by expanding the district to the folks that we think most reasonably are gonna get use out of that sidewalk. And so as this project develops and a sidewalk is built, it'll be a much easier conversation to pitch the village, the county, and the state, and any other partners we can find to say, hey, it's not a mile, they put a whole bunch of sidewalk in, now we're talking about 2 connections that are a little shorter, that can be tackled one at a time, so to hopefully, if that helps, or if it doesn't, we can try to do both. And the goal there is really to get that sidewalk there, but, if this development doesn't go in, the sidewalks still be great, but the need of it kind of drops down the list, and so if this project is then approved at the planning board, we can say with some certainty that the intent is that this sidewalk is gonna get built, and so we are looking to anyone who is not High Bridge senior apartments to figure out how we build that last mile, and that might look like doing a sidewalk district like we have over in Enders that includes Dartmoor and a High Bridge Terrace. But it can include more of a High Bridge Road, or perhaps we can find a more creative way, like we figured out with the Enders Road. The biggest challenge here is sidewalks are very difficult to build in the town, and our goal here is when we have opportunities, we are asking developers, build a sidewalk to nowhere. Because if that sidewalk doesn't exist, it's that much harder after the approval process to come back and build a sidewalk. When we make it a condition of building these projects, building these buildings, we have an assurance that unless the project's going belly up, there's gonna be a sidewalk there. And the project is not complete until the sidewalk is there. So we're actually leveraging this new development to help fill in those gaps. Because as the gaps get smaller and smaller because they get filled in, the effort to fill in those gaps reduces. And so that's really the goal here, is with many of our new developments, we've got Peregrine that's going in over on Medical Center Drive. They said the same thing, it's a sidewalk to nowhere, and we said, yes, exactly, that is what we were asking you to do. so that we can work on filling in the gaps. Because previously, we didn't tell everybody that you needed a sidewalk on a commercial project or a, high density residential project, and so we're trying to catch up as much as we can. So I don't know if that's the answer folks are looking for, but
No,
there are.
yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't thought of it that way. And I just want to, I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to clarify. We're not looking for sidewalks on Dartmoor. It's those nice wide streets. It's okay. I just wanted to quickly interject.
No worries.
Yeah.
Mr. Supervisor, are we able to maybe get the residents' information so that
Yeah.
we could put like a speed spy, that's what they're called, speed
Yeah.
spies. But maybe we could utilize the property that she has and.
Yeah, so what we'll do is,
Okay, great.
yeah, we'll get some emails, and then anybody that sent in a comment or spoken here, if you're interested in being considered, let the town clerk know, we'll get that over to the police, and, cause if we can find a good location to mount it, that means we can get out a little faster.
Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, just a comment and a question. So historically, we're now in a time where people are saying we want sidewalks, we want bike lanes. Previous to that, about a couple decades ago, when that was attempted, there was pushback because of concern about maintenance. And so we're going through a process now, knowing that we have county roads, we have village roads, and we have town roads, and coordinating all of those pieces are part of the time that's involved in doing some of these more complex projects. So we have trustee Matt here from Fayetteville, and I'm wondering if you might comment on, is there a plan on High Bridge to work on filling in sidewalks further out?
We haven't got a plan in place currently because nothing is being discussed on your side of the street.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Okay.
we're talking about, obviously, we're going into different areas where we're talking about right across from town center, talking about some of those areas, about things that we can do with work in cooperation with you, and also work in cooperation with the county.
Right.
Because when we start talking about street crossings, we start talking about sidewalks, we need to have all the players working together.
Absolutely.
And we can only spend our money in the village. Forgive me.
Right.
I mean, having just gone through a budget season, I'm just like, this is really important to make sure people understand. We are not trying to seek and expand. We're basically looking to try to work in cooperation with our neighbors.
Right.
And our neighbors have to work in cooperation with us at the same time. So it's a give and take in how we try to do it, because typically what happens is we are looked at to do the maintenance. Right.
Right.
Doing plowing and things such as that, because we have the infrastructure in place to do that already. And you folks do not. The other part is your areas will be very dispersed in very many different locations, so that's a problem. I mean, most of this is logistics. And it's something that I'm well aware of. And when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at, I'm talking about traffic crossings, and I'm talking about sidewalks. These are the epitome of the problems that we all face, because I face the same problem on Route 5 in the village. Trying to get those take place, because I have to work with New York State DOT, and I'm also working with that in the locations on the edges when we're talking about county roads. So this is the other piece. The county planning is very important to that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for commenting. So mostly I wanted the residents to understand that it's not just the town deciding, hey, I'm just gonna put this in here. It's working with all those levels of government and going through the channels that are needed for each of those levels of government. So.
And if I could just say one more thing, I just want to emphasize how short of a stretch that needs to be connected by sidewalks. I mean, I think maybe 300 feet. So I just, especially if if the developer is going to build their sidewalk, then the village has their sidewalk. We are talking like it's such a small stretch that needs to be completed. It's like I want to go out there with pavers and do it myself because it's not, we're not talking like a mile or a half mile or even a quarter mile. It's a very short, it's around a curve. I think there's 5 homes where it's just the sidewalk ends. So I just wanted to, I pass it every day and it's just, I want to finish that sidewalk. And again, it's not just me at Dartmoor, it's the apartment complex that's currently, I believe there's dozens of units and that would connect them as well. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think so.
I was done speaking anyways. Thank you. I just said thank you.
So then, yeah.
Some of us are more.
Yes, this is Denise Lynch again. I wanted to reiterate what Lindsay, I've lived here, like I said, since 1993, and the neighborhood originally tried to petition the town to put sidewalks in that area, and they said it was too, they put it down. We couldn't get the sidewalks put in. My question to you guys is, even once the sidewalks are put in, that section that's not in front of homes, who's gonna shovel that and maintain that during the winter months? And make sure that that's being maintained, because that was one of the issues too that was brought up not too long ago, was like when you put sidewalks into that area, then it affected the town, the taxpayers within that area. So the thing is, I'm not against the sidewalks. I'm kind of upset because for years, living here from 1993, when Garden Park was developed, we've asked for that so that our kids had access to the village to ride their bikes and go on the canal, and it wasn't allowed. Now all of a sudden you're getting dense housing and you're going to allow it to come in for 55 and older in a community. It's kind of upset to me that this has happened, that I have to allow these apartments to come in. My children are fully grown, and I just don't understand in the wintertime, if the people that are maintaining the building for 55 and older, I think that the cost should be inflicted upon them. And then also the maintenance of those sidewalks, making sure that their residents get to use the sidewalk should be, is an important part of the whole project. Not something that should be that it's only used during the spring and the winter months. And that one curve, I don't know how you would put sidewalks where it's all undisturbed property, it's all wooded. There is no access from that road. There's homes there's property that's been deadlocked back there behind the houses on the right-hand side of Dartmoor Crossing. So I think to look at the whole picture, because that was never developed, because there's only a small section of land that's available. But I don't see how you build up, that's a huge expense, building up the sidewalk, and to have the people cross the street to go then on the opposite side of Dartmoor, that's also going to be not utilized properly because of the speed and the traffic. So I really wish before a project, something was being built, that the sidewalks were discussed beforehand as a complete project to make sure that us on Dartmoor Crossing and the people at 55 and older in the community know that there is going to be a sidewalk put there. Because like I said, we tried in 1993 and kept going for years, like this other woman said on the board, and it kept getting turned down. So I just want to reiterate that I don't want to be shocked afterwards that they turn down putting the sidewalks in, that it doesn't happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will just say too, like, we are actively figuring out how to build sidewalks as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible. But just for example, if we were trying to build this sidewalk prior to this development, that would mean instead of however many affected units that a senior apartment complex would be to take their fair share of the maintenance of the sidewalk, it'd be a vacant lot, which would probably be a couple of EDUs. So all of this is logistically, it's difficult, so we're trying to cross some gaps. Timeline, very difficult, but also too, on the funding. If we try to do it ourselves, the residents are gonna just have to pay that tax. Whereas if we can leverage new development to kind of bring us the majority of that sidewalk, and then we only have to worry about a couple small pieces in maintenance, it drastically reduces the cost of the sidewalk so that we can actually make it practical and affordable. So just wanted to kind of add that in, because I get it 100%, but I mean, one of the first things many of us dealt with was third and fourth and fifth graders coming in and telling us they wanted sidewalks so they didn't get hit by cars. And at the time, there was no legal way that we had that made sense to do it. We've been working on developing that. We're waiting for the comptroller to let us know if it's cool or not. And if it works, there is a process in place for residents to petition us. We can do it on our own. There's a lot of different ways that we're gonna bridge all these gaps, and advocacy is what we need. So, as we continue forward, if this gets approved at the planning board and we know that sidewalk's going in, we get to start talking to our partners like Fayetteville to say, hey, if we paid you to get those next 4 houses and we paid you to do maintenance, does that work? hopefully it does, then we can also reach out to some of the other private entities on hybrids to say, hey, we'd like to enhance, what's in front of you, are you willing to pay that cost? So we talk hybrid terrace or hybrid apartments and things like that. The reason it takes so long, the reason it seems really complicated and kind of disjointed is because it is. We're waiting on partners to make things possible. So just.
And it's expensive.
And it's expensive. The Enders Road folks are, they're on the hook for about $50 a year for that sidewalk once it's built. And, that's where we said to them, go pass a petition, let us know you wanna pay that $50 and we'll take action. So clearly, there's a desire here, and, as this project hopefully goes along and that sidewalk gets built, we'll be able to address that a little easier. So just a final call for comments, anybody online or in person?
I just do one. So for tonight, different from the previous hearing, I did hear more issues about the echo. So I just want to convey that you guys are not the construction people, but if you could convey that to the construction people, that there may need to be some noise mitigation in terms of the echoing that may happen because of the bowl. So I just think that was something I don't recall from coming up last time, we've got a couple of.
Yeah, you're right. One thing that typically happens is we'll have to put right on the drawings, hours of operation, so we can't work late, we can't work early, and we'll tighten that up.
Cause that was something that I don't recall hearing the first time, and it definitely came through today, so I did hear that, and we will try to address the sound issues.
So I'll ask the board, do we wanna keep this open?
We can't go to that.
We can't vote tonight, so we can close, we're gonna also keep it open.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
please keep it open, yes, because if you don't mind, my comments on this are, we've kind of had a public hearing here where the comments have revolved around traffic, parking, noise, the process of approving a PUD plan, noise again, traffic again. This is a housing development. This is a project that was presented to add to the available, accessible housing that is a demonstrated need in this community, and it's something we are committed to. It's something that our comprehensive plan has committed us to, and it is exceedingly important. All of these concerns are very relatable to me. I live on a very busy road. When somebody drops their coffee cup in the parking lot across from my house, I hear it. When somebody can't figure out how to turn off their car alarm at the Daily Diner, I hear it. The lights when people pull off out of the parking lot flash into my living room, which was a concern brought by a resident here. These are issues that can be annoying. However, in the hierarchy of needs, they're not the top. The top is safe housing. And for people who want to live in an apartment, I don't know, I've lived in apartments for years of my life. Living in an apartment doesn't mean you like noise, you like traffic, and you like annoying community issues. You also want a safe, quiet place to live. Just the fact that you pay rent in an apartment complex doesn't mean you don't like a quiet, reasonable, peaceful environment. So assuming that, all of these problems are simply going to be exacerbated by the fact that there are going to be renters living in a congregated setting, I don't think is well-founded. And so I'm happy to keep this, we're gonna keep this public hearing open longer so people can have an opportunity to weigh in on aspects other than traffic, parking, and noise.
I'd also just like to add in that the hope and intent behind these apartments is for seniors and elderly who are currently living in our community in houses, have a place to go and to remain in our community to a one-level apartment because they're no longer able to maintain their large home, or they don't want to maintain the large home and upkeep in it. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of that type of housing stock in our community. So the hope is that these apartments are going to allow that type of population that we have in our community to still be able to stay in our community where they live, they don't want to leave. So this is also providing that type of a need for our community as well.
And traffic load is its own separate issue, its own separate concern. I mean, every one of us sitting in this room could volunteer to give up our vehicle if we want to contribute to the solution. But we unfortunately live in a world where, we live in a community where a car is kind of required. So
You ride a bicycle everywhere.
I ride a bicycle as many places as possible, and yet I still own a car. You have to do it. But yeah, thank you. Good.
Just want to add to that, I didn't hear anybody here say, don't build this. We're beyond that. That leaves a whole spectrum of how you do it.
Yeah.
That's all we're saying. We're not saying no, we're saying there's a few ways to go about it, and we need to be part of that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, one quick question if I
Sure.
may. No one will hear you online, I know. John Ryan, I live at 8236 Salt Springs Road, and just a question as a follow-up to what you had stated there in regards to residents. And agree 100%, some people it's just reached a point of age to where, or financial situation to where I need to move into an apartment. So I guess one question that, or situation I would ask, if there's room in this that we consider, is I feel that with that, the current residents of this town that have been here, that have been paying taxes, should have first right of refusal on those units before they're opened up to people from outside of town. If someone's lived here, third generation, raised their kids here, paid the taxes the entire time, and they want to transition to those apartments, I feel like that should be something that's factored into it as well. That's all.
Well, so we're keeping the public hearing open. You guys have heard that. You can have a conversation. I don't know if that's in any way feasible, but if just take it into consideration, and then if there's anything we can talk about the next time we have a public hearing, we can continue that conversation.
I was asked by the team, would it be in the board's best interest that we hold our comments until the hearing is decided that we're gonna close the public hearing rather than speak to it tonight?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea, because the conversation's gonna continue, and that way too, you guys can take some time with the comments and make sure that we're getting everything answered that's needed.
And John, maybe at the start of the next meeting, to answer a little bit about what we've done, we can show the photometrics plan, we can show the revisions we made.
Yeah.
If you give us time, because I feel like we're on our heels and you guys haven't seen the drawings, and I think if we'll put some plans out on the table, if we get here early so you can look at it, and then, Anthony will take you through the building and we'll take you through the site.
There's been an awful lot of thought, and this project's been tweaked since our initial introduction of the project some 2 years ago. And those things that we tweaked were comments that the neighbors and the public made to us, and we took that under consideration. And I think we've done a reasonably good job of addressing that. So we'll do a presentation at the next meeting.
That sounds
and answer this concern.
So I think normally when we leave it open, we table the public hearing. I don't know, we usually make a motion to table, or we just leave it open? Okay. So we will leave this open for a dynamic conversation at the next meeting. So I'm just gonna ask the board if we could just move to 6 instead, we've got folks here, and I just wanna kind of keep the business moving. So thank you very much. Thank you for the comments on the project. Really appreciate it, and we'll continue to communicate about it. Shuffle around.
Yes. You gotta tell me.
Yeah, take your time.
Grander scale that you say you're coordinating.
We're not sure.
Yeah. And the county wanted sidewalks and other changes that will be coming down the pipe. How do we out in the community know what's going on? How are those things communicated to the community? Where you are, you're saying you're working on it, you're working on it, and it's very tedious and very complex.
Sign up for the agendas.
I do, I get all of those things.
And whenever there is an action item there, that'll be on the agenda. But then also too, we have a newsletter that's going out quarterly, and so something like this, I think would be for a great piece in the next newsletter.
Yeah, so on the agendas, it has no connection to any particular project of this note, like tonight with Garden Park or whatever.
It's on today's agenda.
What's on?
All of the attachments related to the project.
No, and I'm talking about what is going on in the background, not on this project, not on Quinn Ponds, but what's going on in the environment.
I think maybe
This week we got it, yeah, right, but
there's gonna be a site plan update.
Yes, you can come on June 12th.
Yeah, June 12th.
Okay.
Probably need that.
I saw that was, is it open to the?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so next up, we're gonna have a public hearing here on the consolidatory natural resource removal permit. This is the second time we're looking at the permit this year. Basically, where we've been so far is we renewed the permit, we did the zone change, and this is the permit revision to apply to the newly, to apply to the whole quarry, including the new area. So what we've done is we had some really good conversations at a couple past meetings. So I asked Attorney Sutton to kind of draft something up so that we can kind of condense all that information. And here, I'll just kind of work through it a little bit, but what we wanted to really make sure for everybody's benefit is that.
Are we supposed to send this to the county planning board?
It's already prepared to go.
Okay, so I didn't, we gotta do that motion.
Okay,
So,
so before we leave, topic four.
yeah, so, if someone wants to make that motion.
Motion to send the application for the proposed PUD amendment for High Ridge Senior Apartments to the Onondaga County Planning Board for their recommendation.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries, thank you.
Sorry.
So, back to the board. We had some really good conversations about some suggestions. We have some feedback, from the, county planning department. Prior public comments are in here, as well as a number of issues relating to seeker. So impacts to the land, reclamation is a mitigating factor, groundwater and surface waters, traffic, particularly truck traffic, noise, particularly blasting and how its effects can be mitigated, and also air quality. Another thing here, I don't know if it's in the letter, but we had some concerns about the hydrology of the area. And so looking at that, so what I was hoping we could do tonight is kind of present like, this is all the information we've got. And we are going to be incorporating the vast majority of this into the permit. So that it's kind of we're working with everybody through this process a little bit, as opposed to just presenting a new permit and asking for feedback on the permit. So really what we're looking for, or I mean, obviously you can comment however you'd like on the, during the public hearing on the permit. But we'd really like to see, is there anything we missed? Is there anything that hasn't been brought up yet? Or is there any new information? And also too, just any major concerns about this expansion in the permit itself. So that's the conversation.
For a little bit more, so the second part is where people have their.
Yeah, so that's where the water.
So these are the issues that we're planning to address in the revision.
So while everyone's reading that, I'm motion with the.
I'll make a motion with me.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion. Of the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor? So if you're doing this via Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Is there anyone in the second row who would like to make a comment? Well.
Is the resolution that was attached different than that, or is this gonna modify?
So what was attached is the existing permit. So between the existing permit plus this letter, it kind of gives that whole picture of what our goals are.
Okay, so I guess I spoke to you guys before about my concerns with water, and I have read the resolution that was attached, so, just want to emphasize a couple of things that I think should be defined so that we don't have any questions later on. Relative to water especially, the resolution refers to 3 monitoring wells. Do they exist now, or?
No,
They don't?
I mean, well, we have one at the quarry still, the other well was, Townsend Road, where my uncle lived, and then the May house where Sam, I can't think of his last name is. But they were, the wells, we tested them right, we did it for 15 years, they decided it was, it showed no effects, and so they.
Okay, so there, I guess my suggestion would be, and I had suggested before that we monitor wells of actual homes that are within a certain radius, and that probably should be defined by hydrologists or the quarry committee. So rather than use a well in the quarry or one down at Townsend, why not actually pick some of the nearby neighbors, use those as the monitoring wells? And as companion to that, there's language in here about resolution, arbitration, if there's an alleged failure of a well or bad air quality. I still suggest that there be some benchmarking done with guidance from a hydrologist so that if there is a problem, you can say, this is what the well was doing now. The customer or the homeowner alleges that something happened. and it really protects the quarry and the homeowner. It cuts down on the he said, she said, to say, look, the flow rate and the quality was X. Now suddenly it changed within the 30-day limit, and it's less of an argument. So I really want a lot more definition, and the hydrologist should say, all right, are these wells qualified? Is this well deep enough? Is that well too deep? Make sure that we're clear on that. The other thing too, that I think in this existing resolution, and forgive me if I know this is being modified, the arbitration language, am I correct in saying it's arbitration only? There's no room for court action? The way it's written?
That's the way it's written.
Okay, which I don't particularly like that because it doesn't give you an alternative, a place of appeal. But additionally, there's specific language that I couldn't quite understand, but it talks about Kinsella Quarry would bear the cost of the said regardless of the outcome, if the arbitrator shall determine that the claim was presented and pursued in good faith and with reasonable cause, TH Kinsella Incorporated shall pay all the expenses of the arbitration. Then it goes on to say, including not more than $2,000 for counsel and consultation and expense of the claimant. That seems rather light. Arbitration can cost $500–600 an hour. If there is a number in there, I believe it should be greater. It should also be indexed because fees and things go up over time. And this is a contract that goes to what, 2031 or something like that. So any static number gets cheaper and cheaper every year, as we can see with inflation.
Great feedback, thank you.
And then, yeah, I think that's the majority of my concern. I just really believe there should be a great deal of detail put in here, and then there's less arguing later on.
Thank you very much.
Can I just get your name, sir?
Joe Massinio, Salt Springs Road.
Can I ask you what you just kind of repeat about what you think the hydrologist should do?
The hydrologist should help set the specifications of what are the proper metrics for a well. In other words, given this specific geography, that's what's known about the aquifer, which we believe to be very large down there. The hydrologist would be somebody that studies primarily the movement of water on the surface or underground, but it would say, okay, the test well should be at least this deep, or we should have a variety. We should have one well that's 200, one well that's 100. They'll come up with specific metrics that that those wells should possess, rather than, Tom's got some wells, but they were done a long time ago. The quarry was very different 10 or 15 years ago, and now we're moving closer and closer to the housing, which on the corner of Salt Springs, Grimaldi's and some others have wells that are very close. And I think maybe with the guidance of the Quarry Commission, along with some experts, that they can give you some really great metrics to put in there. That way, if we test the well beforehand and there's a substandard well, they can't come back to town later and say, hey, Tom, my well's 2 gallons a minute, when it was always 2 gallons a minute.
Thank you. Wells on Dry Hill.
Yeah, right.
Like Dry Hill Cemetery.
Anyone else from the second row? Anyone in the third row? Anyone in the fourth row? Okay. So. Any hands? Just the last call for anybody participating via Zoom. Then I think we'll be in the same position here. We'll hold this open, but we do have a couple of motions to start moving things along.
So we did want to talk a little bit about seeker. Attorney Sullivan, do you want to say a little bit about seeker?
Well, just that it is a type 1 action, so the board needs to take a hard look at the issues. And even though this has been before this board with the adjacent property, want to make sure that the same hard look is made with respect to this project. The town engineer, this can be referred to the town engineer to look at, because it all looks good to lay people, but we want to get those eyes on it, just to make sure that everything's good. And then it will be referred to the county, and the county did have actually the comments that we've already looked at, and, you know, concern with groundwater and noise, traffic, trucks primarily. So I expect we'll see the same thing from county when it comes back from the GML referral. And I think that's, you know, that's it. We'll need to declare the seeker lead agency. DEC already wants this board to be lead agency. They're already the only agency basically involved in this project.
Yeah, that's part of that, after when we applied to DEC for, because along with this process, DEC is also considering an amendment to the current permit to add the 11.8 acres. And when that process was done, the town board was already declared to be the seeker lead agency for this modification, so.
For the zoning.
Well, for the amendment to the DEC permit,
Okay.
for this whole process, that already happened like 2 years ago, yeah. So I just wanted to point that out. And then with respect to the environmental impacts, you know, a lot of those are addressed within our application. There was there's a whole narrative that was prepared by JMT, who's the mining consultant for this project. So areas such as noise, groundwater traffic, that is discussed in there, so I'd encourage the board to review that, and obviously town engineer will as well. That same document is also with DEC, so they're in the process of reviewing it as well, so.
I'll make a motion to declare this application a type 1 action under seeker and to declare the town board lead agency, although I guess we already are from the previous cycle, but it's for this 11.8 acres where we're going to stay. So I'll make that motion.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And I make a motion to send the application for the natural resource removal permit for TH Kinsella to the Onondaga County Planning Board for their recommendation.
I'll second. All those in favor? Anything else before we move on?
So do you guys have anything else? Like, I think we're just gonna leave it
We're
open.
leaving this open till the 11th also.
Because we can't, without the county, we can't.
Yeah, we can't vote on it. That being said, I do know, the seeker determination is critical to them, working with the DEC. So we're gonna, you know, we'll make sure that the town engineer has this immediately, so we can move that along, so that even if we're waiting for even if we're waiting on county planning, we should be able to have a more pointed seeker discussion, as to not add further delay.
So the county planning will be back by the 11th of June, which is, I think, the same, is it the same meeting, this meeting?
Yeah, they're usually good about sending it in the afternoon, so we have it in time.
Certainly if, you know, the town engineer can deliver comments, then we'll put together something. If we can by the 11th, if not.
Yeah, I think the big part too is, hopefully we can start the conversation, get as far as we can, and, you know, if we can't get to where we'd like to be.
Can I just address that really quick on the seeker part? So the reason that's really important to allow this to move forward is if DEC basically has said they're not gonna move forward with their review until they get the seeker negative declaration from the town, since the town board's the lead agency. So we're fine with, you know, if we get that seeker negative declaration, at least get that to DEC so they can start their process.
Yeah.
Which also includes a 30-day public comment period, so they get comments in. We're fine with the town board continuing its discussion relating to the actual permit itself.
Yeah.
And some of the issues that, you know, we heard today. We're okay with that continuing, but if we can get the seeker negative declaration on as soon as possible on the 11th, we can get that to DEC so that can continue to go on while the town continues to look at the process.
Yeah, it sounds like we're gonna have a lot more conversation about the language of the permit.
Which is fine.
Exactly.
Right.
So like I said, we'll do our best, we'll try to get that moving, and, you know, hopefully get to where we need to be by the 11th.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
John, will you send that to the engineer, or does Gary do it, or?
You might send it.
Just about.
Yeah, just about, yeah, Mike and Jason should be fine.
Yeah, they'll have.
Yeah. Yep. Hey,
You wanna go back? Are we done with?
are we all?
So we're holding this one.
Yeah, anything further on the board from anybody on the board? Okay.
So back to the. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Is there anything I need
Awesome. Great job.
We know it's fine.
Okay. So, we're gonna return back to item number 5. This is a public hearing, this is a proposed amendment to chapter 89 of Town Code, peddling and soliciting. And I think the easiest way to say this is we want a little bit more control over the background checks we get, and so we wanna standardize it. We had a recent potential issue where less than great background check came in, and luckily we were able to review it to an extent that we made the right decision there, but getting that consistency in what the peddlers and soliciting folks are looking for will help expedite the process pretty well. And it sounds like we know of a couple of different companies that apparently have 24-hour turnarounds and things like that.
Actually, I'm just gonna piggyback right off of who Ann and Rec use for their background checks. They showed me how to use it today. And it just seems to be the right way to go. We've already got the contract with them, there's no need to reinvent the wheel, so we're gonna go with them.
Thank you. So, I entertain if there's any questions, but otherwise I entertain a motion to waive the reading.
Review of the notice regarding the public hearing for this district.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing with regard to the solicitor law. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. If you are joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Given that we've cleared out a little bit, is there anyone here by show of hands who'd like to make a comment?
We do this now.
Hi, my name is Craig. That's it.
I'm Craig.
Oh, this isn't the AA meeting. Okay. So I like the idea that you're proposing, especially with the background check enhancement. I'll tell you 2 quick stories though that I'd like you to add something to it. About 2 months ago, probably sometime in March, a guy came to the door and he said, "Hey, I'm in the neighborhood and people are having their debris removed from their roofs or whatever." I had no idea who he was. And he didn't introduce himself. I called the department. And, said, I'm old enough to remember people saying, "Hey, we've been doing work in the neighborhood. I got some extra material. You want me to do your driveway," or stuff like that. That's what it sounded like to me. Called the non-emergency number. And they sent a patrol car and ultimately identified the person. He was legit, as it turned out. But the problem that I see is you may have background checks, qualification, whatever. When a person comes to your door, how do you identify who's legit and who's not? Last couple weeks ago, an aqua truck was in my driveway. Credentials, whatever, had no problem identifying it, but usually a person who's a solicitor, door to door, whatever, doesn't. I don't know if in your application there would be the issuance of some kind of, whether it's a document, a badge, or something that tells the homeowner, "Hey, this is somebody who's gone through the process and been approved." I know my friend, a person who lives in the village, I think he's sitting here now, says, people come to his door and, most of the time they don't have the permit, they don't have the credentials, or they'll show one that's from something else or from somebody else and whatever. And again, the average homeowner doesn't know how to identify who's legit or not. I don't know that we are confronted with a lot of break-ins, but we do know that there have been some nefarious characters occasionally who show up. So my suggestion is, again, something that, in addition to the background checks that you're doing, which I applaud, something that helps the homeowner identify what it is. Yeah.
So they are issued a permit on town letterhead, on my letterhead with my signature with the race sealed stamp, and they should be carrying that around to produce it if it's asked.
And I'm asking for something more visible than that, because if I ask for it, I guess they'll produce it. But I don't even know to ask for it in most instances that this is a legitimate solicitor. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
So we need
Like a badge or
stickers.
something.
Your politicians need ID to go knock door to door, you know, you don't.
I don't.
There's an exemption.
Okay, anything else on this?
I think we're, so, I mean, I think we're good to close the public hearing, but I think that's a great thing that we can talk about and maybe consider. We'll come up with some, whether it's badges through like the PD or something, we've got some stuff.
So, thank you for that comment. Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
All those in favor? Aye. What's that?
I'm just commenting that we're in this kind of.
Yeah, pretty nice. Alright, so the motion passes. Do you think, is it a policy change for the badges or is that a change to the local law? What do you guys think?
So I wanna work on the policy anyways, and what the chief and I have discussed trying to get together once we were able to pass this and get the background
Okay.
checks. Because in essence, what's going to disqualify somebody? What comes back on their background check that's gonna disqualify? Is it a loitering call? You know, they get, have a charge for loitering. So the chief has offered to sit down with me and kind of go through that. Anna and I were just trying to come up with some ideas, maybe a badge with a photo. I know one town, it's not around here, I wanna say it's up north, they do pictures and post it on their social media and say, hey, this person came in, they have a peddler's permit, here's the expiration. So I don't know if that's the route to go, but obviously I do agree, it should be something more visible.
So maybe the suggestion then is we can adopt it as is. Let the policy be developed, and if we feel the need to incorporate any of that policy into the law, we can take care of that kind of after the season.
I mean, it's a practical, like, how, because the law includes every licensee when exercising his or her license shall carry the license with him and shall exhibit it upon demand.
And then what is the
What is the
license that
license?
they're
Oh, so yeah, so
Yeah.
that way we can streamline the process for you now, and then if we need to amend it later to say it's a badge in particular, we can do that.
That's perfect.
And whatever it is, share the data.
Yeah, absolutely, most definitely.
So I would entertain a motion to adopt the local law as presented, if you're.
motion to adopt local law 2025-3, amending chapter 89 of town code entitled peddling and soliciting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see.
If Rob were here, he would tell us a story about the 2014 Ford
Yes.
Explorer,
Yes.
but he isn't.
I have a picture of it.
Yeah, that's right.
No.
Yeah, so this one,
It's not just, we're doing, we're
the,
declaring first we're declaring surplus, then we.
yeah, so,
the auction is
we have been reached out to by the village of Manoa. They had a change in staffing, lost access to a vehicle they had. The mayor just asked if we had something. Luckily, we just bought EVs to replace some older vehicles. So what we're looking at here, is gonna be, we're gonna declare it a surplus. That's how we say that it, has no longer has value to the municipality. And then, we're gonna look at a lease agreement. This is a pretty standard form. We do it when we're working with our partners. We work with the villages all the time, so in a situation like this, something that we would have otherwise been taking to auction now, the lease allows us to accept $1 and they get to use it until they are done with it, and when they are done with it, it comes back to us. So we're not giving them the vehicle, we're giving them some time with the vehicle, and this is always in an effort, we're always looking for ways to not have to, the village doesn't have to go buy a car or anything like that, we've got stuff available, so we try to work together to help out as much as we can. So the first motion that we have is to declare the town's 2014 Ford Explorer surplus. So again, that's just kind of a procedural thing.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to declare the town's 2014 Ford Explorer as surplus.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Were there any questions on the lease?
We have to give them $1 back.
Yeah, when they're done with it.
Yeah. We'll put it in an interest bearing account. So if there's no questions, I would entertain a motion to adopt.
Motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement relative to the sales purchase of the town of Manlius' 2014 Ford Explorer with the Village of Manoa upon legal review.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, this is, Rob's got 3 vehicles that are ready to go to bid, or no, ready to accept the bid. So if you'd like to make those motions.
So, we have 3 vehicles that were previously declared surplus and have gone to the auction. I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the bid in the amount of $4,350 for the 2014 Ford F-350 Super Duty pickup truck with plow that was declared surplus.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the bid in the amount of $5,100 for the 2015 Ford F-350 Super Duty pickup truck with plow that was declared surplus.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Motion to accept the bid in the amount of $3,500 for the 1995, getting a little old, International 4700 Crew Cab dump truck that was declared surplus.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, next up, we have to set a date. There's a local law that we've got on the agenda to amend chapter 155, section 20.2 of the town code entitled Planned Unit Developments. And so basically this is a further iteration on the PUD concept. We've got one that is fully approved and another one that's working through the process. We have been approached by a couple of people that are interested in looking at other parts of the town. Much like we did with the ADU law, we were pretty conservative as to where we thought a PUD would make sense, mostly to keep us from being inundated with requests. I mean, that's really the thing. And so I know a couple of people have reached out with some concerns that, RA is a lot of the town. And this opens the door to a lot of development, and just the whole point of this is we're not making an amendment to the RA zone, we're making an amendment to the PUD law. So it's not like we do this and suddenly you can build a casino up somewhere up in Burkeville. It would still have to go through the normal procedure, the approval process of developing the PUD, that going through the town board, that going through the planning board, seeker, all of those things are still there. So this is opening the door so that we can have conversations about other parcels with a couple of interested agencies. Questions?
So we're gonna set a date for June 11th. So I've already got some comments on it.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and make the motion to set a public hearing. Date regarding the proposed amendment to chapter 155, section 20.2 of the town code entitled Planned Units Development for June 11th, 2025 at 6:35 p.m.
Those in favor? Okay, motion carries. So next up, we talked a little bit about this, I think at the tail end of last year, paid parental leave policy. I think we adopted it, but subject to review, final review of the policy. So I want to thank our deputy town manager, Kim Life, for getting this documented and drafted for us. I know there was a small change that was made earlier today based on some feedback that closed a little bit of a window for if you've been previously employed and you're trying to get to your 12-month mark. But are there any questions or comments or anything that anybody would like to say about this?
So I just want to clarify, because it was not clear to me the first time, that the request is to take a whole day off, not just time here and there. So just to clarify, that's what it says.
Yeah. And important to note too, this is strictly for our non-union staff. As this is adopted, we will reach out to the unions and see if they are interested in negotiating for this, but this is something that we're gonna provide to our non-union staff as a trial to see if it works, because it's something that we've had some requests from employees for. So.
Has it ever been considered for the town to opt in to paid family leave? Insurance. Yeah.
Something we have to, the board has discussed it, I know the previous board did discuss, I think the biggest issue was the cost of the town and the cost of the employee. So we'd have to look at. We can, and I can certainly look into that and.
Maybe get some numbers for the
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
Really, really well written and good job. Thank you very much. Yes, and with that, I would like to make a motion to approve the parental leave policy effective retroactive to January 1, 2025. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, you wanna talk a little bit about this?
So, we applied for and received a planning grant, so it's not a lot of money, to look into the area that is where the town center plaza is. So it's the intersection of Genesee and Burdick Street on the edge of the Village of Fayetteville, which is our busiest intersection area. And, to look at infill sidewalks, bike lanes, changing another traffic light, like whatever it needs to kind of make that flow a little bit better. And also to take advantage, as was discussed earlier, any place where water and sewer already are where we want to do development. And there's still a few vacant lots in that vicinity. So it's to kind of look at that. And then a sidebar to that, because it happens to be so close to the canal, is a broader state mandate to try to help with connectivity between the canal trail and places to go get food or stay overnight or do whatever for people taking advantage of the trail. So it's all, so the space that we're primarily talking about is from the canal intersection at Burdick Street down to the street line and then up to the town of DeWitt line on Genesee Street. So that L is what we're talking about. We've also had, as Supervisor Deere mentioned earlier, that there's concerns going up to 257, also on Burdick Street. So there'll be like an ancillary thing. If anything we do here can help with that, we want that to happen as well. So it's planning. It will be primarily sort of hypothetical things that could happen, and then talking with the owners along there around what would they like, what would other people like, what would everybody hate, so we don't do that. So just trying to get at that kind of a thing. So the RFP is to get a planning firm to do that work, which we do have funding to do. So this is something that is coming from a Empire State ESD grant. So Empire State Development Grant for kind of economic development of that region. And we know part of that is drainage. So a big part of that is also trying to manage the drainage coming down Genesee Street and down.
It's really delightful to get to this point with this, because I don't know, for those of us who are kind of especially involved in the comprehensive plan development, I don't remember what the focus session was about when Dr. Carter was here from the staff. We talked hypothetically about this very project area and many of the aspects that will get teased out in this activity. So it's very exciting to be able to actually follow through on some of that visionary work.
So I don't know if any of you ever tried to like walk across Horace property, but it is not particularly walkable. So we're hoping to work with them. You know, they will be a partner in this. The owners of the properties along the way will be partners. So anyway, I would like to make a motion to authorize the publication of the request for proposals for a planning consultant regarding the Burdick Genesee corridor strategic plan.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have item number 13 tabled, considering finding a local artist to help with the redesign of the current town logo. That's been tabled for now, as we're still working on the language there. Item number 14, Quarry Commission member appointment. Councilor Bollinger, Nicholson, and myself met with John Guyan, I think just last week. We had a phenomenal conversation. I will say to be able to appoint somebody to a board that is ready to go and excited and wants to help out, it's always nice to make sure, to find someone who wants to help out and we can find a spot to do exactly that. So are there any questions?
Just to, he lives in a contiguous location near the quarry, and has expertise in things that are related to quarrying, such as explosives. So that's sort of the regular people listening.
So I would like to make a motion to appoint John Kayan as a member of the Quarry Commission.
And I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you so much. That being said, we are currently, I don't know if we've settled on a date yet. We had to move the initial Quarry Commission meeting because we double booked this room. So we're working on finding another date, and then as soon as we have that date, time, everything we pushed out through social media, the website, all that good stuff.
That was the AA meeting, wasn't it?
Next up, we've got some budget additions.
Oh, this is exciting. So, so this says 2,000, but it's actually 2 million, right?
It does say two.
It says 2 million.
Our motion to,
Oh,
okay.
So, so this is the Sky Ridge water system. Mel, do you want to say something? So this is Sky Ridge water system. It is in process. We've done some of the preliminary work. We've ordered some of the other work. And so this is a motion to approve the budget addition in the amount of $2 million to SW 34.3389.314 DSNE grant award. So that's to approve the amount of the addition. And then to approve the
Well,
amendment.
it's the-
Let's do this one. So I'll make that one.
We get a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And then to motion to approve the budget addition in the amount of $2 million to SW 35.8310.400 water admin contractual.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And I know too, we've got, there's a meeting with the residents there. This has been a really interesting project going forward, and we're very lucky to have been able to hold on to this $2 million grant. And, you know, I think we're gonna be able to make a really good impact on the neighborhood. And
So the meeting with the residents is the 16th, and it will be here.
we have a budget transfer. This is to cover some overages and costs, for, the town manager, deputy town manager annual conference. And so I'm taking that from office supplies to cover that.
Well, it's for Sarah, so I'll go ahead and make this. Motion to approve the budget transfer in the amount of $1,811.88 from A Fund 5.1220.401 office supplies to A Fund 5.1120.402 for seminars and conferences.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Let's see, we've got minutes.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 14th, 2025 as amended.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Yeah,
So I'd like to make a motion to approve abstract number 10. Here. And yeah, just in the amount of $635,342.90. This does include a police grant expense, so money in, money out for the police. The GIS project, which we haven't talked a lot about, but that we did pay for, we are implementing GIS here at the town. And some work on the Murfield drainage project, which was approved a couple of years ago and it's finally happening. So those are the winners this time.
Second.
A lot of winners.
all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Any announcements?
Go ahead.
So on Monday, the Memorial Day parade afterwards, ceremony in the village of Manlius, they announced their Hometown Heroes banner program. It's a new program that they're gonna be doing honoring our hometown heroes and veterans locally in the village of Manlius. They're gonna have more information about it soon on their website, and applications are gonna be available shortly. The banners are gonna be hung on their poles in the village from Veterans Day until Pearl Harbor Day on December 7th. Keep your eyes out for that.
So I want to announce that with another grant that we got a year ago, we have commissioned a study of the West Branch Limestone Creek to study the erosion and flooding that happens in the area where Troop K 173 meet. And it's contiguous to the village of Manlius, so the village of Manlius, town of Manlius, village of Manlius again, town of Pompey, we're all part of this study. And it is done. And it now gives us the information we need to apply for funding to request for mitigation of those things. So we will be applying a cycle that is for this summer to do some mitigation immediately in the area right by the bridge where the erosion has been quite extreme. And then it gives us long-term ideas for projects to do in the future years where we would sequester more water above and where it would never even come to there and therefore would be reducing the chance of flooding.
Yeah, notably, our engineers who conducted this, did this study for us, did not rely on simply historical 100-year flood data trends, but actually incorporated predictive climate modeling into what we expect to see over the next 30 years rather than what we have seen in terms of 100-year flood data. So it's very encouraging. It's
So
more complicated.
I just heard that in recent years, Central New York has had 3 times the level of tornadoes as previously. And we know that these heavy burst thunderstorms are more common, so that they're trying to accommodate really those heavier downpours, because that's what causes the erosion is when there's a lot of water in a short time. So that's exciting. We will be working on that. And then I did just want to let everybody, because it's the 200th anniversary of the Erie Canal, don't forget it. June 14th, the Chittenango Boat Museum is having the opening of their accessible kayak. Of course.
Yes. Motion to adjourn. So moved. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you.